Thousands of demonstrators have clashed with police in the German city of Hamburg, which is hosting the G20 summit. President Trump has warned that the future of the West is in doubt and criticized North Korea and Russia at the start of the G20 summit in Germany. The number of migrants illegally crossing the Mediterranean to Europe has risen by almost 20% this year to just over 85,000. Hello there, you're watching the press preview. First look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with The Observer's chief leader writer Sonia Sodha and the political journalist Isabel Oakeshott. So let's see what's on some of those front pages. Business leaders plan to confront the Brexit Secretary David Davis and demand a delay in the UK's departure from the single market and customs union. That's according to the Telegraph's front page. The Guardian also goes to that story, reporting that the move marks an escalation of the battle to soften the government's approach to leaving the EU. The Eye claims that Eurosceptic cabinet ministers are demanding more sympathetic coverage of Brexit from the BBC. A Conservative MEP has warned Brussels that Britain has nothing to be frightened about from the EU. That's in the Daily Express. The Times claims that a fifth of Labour MPs have appeared on a deselection hits list drawn up by a branch of the left-wing campaign group Momentum. The Financial Times reports that the company which makes Gaviscon and Dettol products has acknowledged that last month's cyber attack could hit sales by £110 million. The Daily Mail says plans for a statue of Margaret Thatcher have been blocked because it fears it could be vandalised. The Sun says that Britain is facing the biggest butter shortage since World War II. The Metro reports that a woman has been convicted of making false claims of sexual assault against 15 men. The Mirror leads with a court case involving allegations that horse meat was sold as beef. And The Star has a story on one of the contestants of Love Island. Well, I'm joined now by Sonia Sodha and Isabel Oakeshott. A very good evening to you both. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. Let's go straight to this story, which is on the front page of the Telegraph. Brexit, not too far from our minds as ever. It's got the headlines, business threats to derail Brexit.
Well, we haven't been on for a while together, so we thought we'd have to revive our usual Brexit bashing with each other.
Looking forward to it.
Is my
I obviously come up with the reasoned arguments.
And I just...
Isabel fails at knocking them down.
Anyway, on to the story. So essentially, the CBI is pushing for a delay to Brexit. They think that it would be a good idea to try to put everything off and have a kind of long transitional period. There are obviously dangers in that. I mean, a lot of business people would feel quite differently, that having such a long period of uncertainty would actually be bad for business, not good for business.
But this is about increasing certainty, though, isn't it? Because you're extending the transitional period. You're making sure that Britain is best, it's got the best chance possible of being able to negotiate a good deal. And after all, this is coming from the business community itself, from the CBI.
Well, no, it's not actually. The CBI is not representative of all businesses. The CBI is actually extremely one-dimensional on the Brexit debate, and it was a big source of...
Well, you would say that, Isabel, because you disagree with them.
It was a big source of debate in the referendum campaign as to just how unrepresentative the CBI actually is. It represents a number of very large businesses, but actually the Federation of Small Businesses and Chambers of Commerce and various other business organisations feel quite differently. So there you go.
It's not just the Telegraph leading with this story. This is on the front page of The Guardian as well. It says, delay leaving single market according to business chiefs. So they're taking the same tone as well.
Yeah, I think, well, it should be on the front pages because it's a big story. It's a really big intervention by the CBI. No matter what Isabel says, this is the sort of main business, the biggest business representative organisation in the UK.
How few they represent.
I know, but
with your hand trying to shut me up there. But.
They represent the biggest companies. And look, I think this completely makes sense. So what their chief exec is saying, their director general, is that it's looking increasingly unlikely that Britain's going to get a deal by March 2019 when the Article 50 process is due to come to an end. So if Britain's going to get some sort of good deal, we have to extend that process, and that will actually create more certainty for business. And I think, we spent the last sort of weeks in an election, there's been loads of political uncertainty. We haven't been getting on and having the conversations that we need to have. The government has not properly fleshed out its position. We're still very much in a situation of the government saying we can have our cake and eat it. Well, actually, Michel Fournier has been telling us House clarifying for us that we can't. So I think this is
Isabel,
a very sensible intervention from the CBI. And after all, Theresa May went to the country, she took her offer of a hard Brexit, and she did not win the general election. There is no mandate now for Britain to leave the single market.
Isabel, when do you think there will be? Isabel, when do you think there will be a deal?
What do I think?
Yeah, when do you think there will be?
Well, I don't know when there will be a good deal. I mean, you know, we have a...
You probably don't mind if we don't get a deal at all, do you? You just want us to drop out altogether.
Well, I think that dropping out, as you put it, in other words, reverting to WTO, would not be the catastrophe that people like you suggest it would. I mean, we have a limited time period for negotiation, and that is a good thing. If the time period is indefinite, that gives no incentive for the EU to actually come to the table and bash something out.
It's not a great thing, though, is it? When we've just had an election, Germany's just about to have an election. Minds in Europe are not focused on this.
Indeed, clearly very uncertain times. Staying with the issue of Brexit, let's move on to a story on the front page of the Eye. This has got the line about Brexiteers apparently declaring war on the BBC after comments from Liam Fox.
I think this is actually a much more interesting story in the sense that we can argue till the cows come home about whether Brexit is or isn't a good thing. Is the BBC or is not the BBC biased on this issue? And
I suspect we could argue till the cows come home on this too, Isabel.
Well, you don't know what my position is on it. What do you think my position is on it?
I think you think the BBC is biased.
I actually don't think there is.
Oh, okay,
no,
right,
I think that the BBC went to unbelievable lengths during the referendum campaign not to be biased. And at that time, I was actually working for the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail has its difficulties with the BBC. It's often quite critical of the BBC, and even the Daily Mail actually went out of its way on a number of occasions to praise the BBC for how balanced it was during the referendum campaign. Has that slipped since the referendum result? I don't see a lot of evidence of that.
No. Is it quite easy, easy thing for Liam Fox to say that the BBC?
Well, I think it's incredibly unbecoming for a government minister to sort of lob this at the BBC. I think it's
Andrea Leadsom the other week about.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's also. I think it smacks of desperation. Actually, I mean, it's kind of like. Come on, you know, Liam Fox is one of the arch Brexiteers. He said this is going to be great for Britain. It's now looking like it might not be so great for Britain. You've got businesses
Sonia,
coming out
saying
there's going to be huge
these
uncertainty.
are the same people that said that the whole time.
But why doesn't Liam Fox get on with delivering this magical Brexit instead of starting to attack the BBC?
He is getting on with it. What he doesn't want to do is in an environment where he feels that people aren't getting a fair hearing, with people like you saying things like, "No, it looks like it's not going to be so great."
Isabel, people like me are on with people like you.
Happy days.
Which we are all thoroughly enjoying. Daily Express, front page, EU told you can't frighten Britain.
Quite right too.
Well, no, but this is just a classic Express kind of headline,
one at a time, please.
So the Michel Fournier, who represents the EU in these negotiations, very matter-of-factly has said to Britain, you can't have your cake and eat it, which is the pretense that Conservative ministers are still carrying on with. And so what he's saying is you either need to be part of the single market, in which case there won't be barriers to trade, but you do have to sign up to freedom of movement, or you leave the single market, and that means you do get to control your own borders, but there will be tariffs on goods. Now, he's just stating the obvious, and the Express's spin on that is that he's bullying the UK. No, he's actually just setting out the situation as it stands.
Well, Isabel, it's saying that Eurocrats are currently running scared because they realise Britain is increasingly likely to walk out of talks.
Quite right too. Sonia's getting herself into a right old lather about this. By the way, what is the point of cake if you can't eat it? What is the point?
Yes, I know, but
what's wrong with trying to have your cake and eat
Johnson,
it? I spend my whole time trying to have my cake and eat it.
Yeah, but you eat it and then it's gone.
It is a fair point. What is the point of cake if you can't eat it?
This is a very existential question.
It is a bit, yeah.
As negotiations continue, I mean, how do you think this is going to pan out? Because we are being told you can't have your cake and eat it, but negotiations do still need to take place, right?
They do, but I think what's very interesting, I think there really has been a marked shift in the climate over the last few weeks since the election. I think this intervention by the CBI is part of that.
This intervention by the CBI is absolutely of no consequence.
I think the intervention, the desperate intervention by Liam Fox, the Brexiteers behind the scenes are actually worried now that Brexit isn't going to happen because of the fact that Theresa May didn't win
Isabel,
the general election.
Isabel, are you worried that Brexit's not going to happen?
You should be worried, Isabel.
Well, because I would be very worried if people like you thought they could deny the democratic verdict in the biggest democratic vote that there has been in recent history.
52-48 wasn't exactly the biggest margin in democratic history, is it?
There is a lot of talk about a cliff edge if we come out of the EU without a deal that people like Sonia want. I would say the cliff edge we are on is a cliff edge for democracy. And if we don't get Brexit after that outcome of the referendum, I think that there will be an absolute uprising.
The mandate from the referendum was to leave the EU. It was not to leave the single market.
Well, that wasn't the question that was asked.
Yeah.
And by the way, both the main party manifestos talked about a process that would mean leaving the single market.
Brexit barely got mentioned on the doorstep in the election.
OK, lots more to get through. We're going to pause just momentarily for a short break. Stay with us on the press preview. Still to come, we'll tell you about an apparent butter shortage in just a few moments' time.